Kim Minho walked down the long metal hallway of Galactic Academy Station Epsilon 7. His footsteps echoed in the quiet corridor. Other students pressed themselves against the walls as he passed. They whispered in their strange alien languages, but Minho understood the fear in their voices. The station orbited a distant planet called Vega Prime. It was neutral territory where different alien species could meet and learn together. Humans had joined the Galactic Consortium 50 years ago, but they were still new to most aliens. Most aliens were still afraid of them. Minho breathed the thin air of the station easily. Around him, other students wore breathing masks or carried oxygen tanks. The Zephyrians needed special suits filled with methane gas. The rock-like Althorians moved slowly in mechanical walkers because the station's gravity was too weak for them. But Minho wore just a simple shirt and pants. His human body could handle almost anything. He had been on the station for 3 months now. He came here to study xenobiology, the science of alien life forms. Back on Earth, everyone told him he was brave for volunteering. Now he understood why. The other students looked at him like he was a wild animal that might attack at any moment. The classroom door slid open with a soft hiss. Professor Veltar stood at the front of the room. She was an Althorian, made of living crystal that sparkled under the bright lights. Her voice sounded like wind chimes when she spoke. "Good morning, students," Professor Veltar said. "Today we will discuss quantum mechanics and how different species understand space and time." Minho took his usual seat, in the back row. The other students avoided sitting near him. Only 2 others sat close by. One was Kang Yuna, another human exchange student. She studied engineering and had been Minho's closest friend since he arrived. The other was Zila, a strange floating creature that looked like glowing mist. Zila was an ethereal, a species that could feel the emotions of others. "Today you will work in groups of 3, Professor Veltar announced. Her crystal body flashed different colors as she spoke. "You must choose partners for your final project." The room filled with nervous chatter as students began forming groups. Minho watched as aliens quickly paired up with their own species. The Vorthax, who looked like giant lizards with sharp teeth, grouped together. The insect-like klaxons clicked and buzzed as they formed their team. Nobody looked at the humans. Thex, the largest Vorthak in the class, turned to stare at Minho. Thex was over 7 feet tall with muscles that bulged under his scaly green skin. His yellow eyes glowed with intelligence, but also with something else. Anger, maybe, or challenge. "The Deathworlders sit alone," Thex said in his deep, rumbling voice. Some of the other students laughed nervously. Minho did not react. He had heard the word Deathworlder many times since arriving at the station. It was what aliens called humans. They said it because Earth was one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. Most worlds that supported life were gentle places with mild weather and friendly animals. Earth had volcanoes, earthquakes, hurricanes, and creatures that could kill with a single bite. Humans evolved to survive all of that. "I will work with them," Zila said suddenly. Her misty form drifted over to Minho and Yuna's table. "Their emotions are interesting." Professor Veltar's crystal body flashed blue, which meant she was pleased. "Excellent. Now your project will be to explain how your species understands the concept of time. Each species experiences time differently based on their biology and home world." Minho opened his tablet and began taking notes. As he worked, he felt eyes watching him. Many of the aliens in the class were studying him like he was a lab specimen. He was used to it by now. After class, Minho and Yuna walked to the station's main cafeteria. The huge room was filled with different eating areas for different species. The Vorthax ate raw meat in one corner. The plant-like Verdans absorbed nutrients from special light panels. The humans ate at tables in the center, where they could eat the processed food that the station provided. "They are all afraid of us," Yuna said as they sat down with their meal trays. "Even the big ones like Thex." "Fear can be useful," Minho replied, taking a bite of synthetic protein. "But it can also be dangerous." Zila floated over to their table. She did not eat food like other species. Instead, she absorbed energy from the emotions of those around her. She seemed to enjoy being near the humans. "Your fear scent is different," Zila said to Minho. Her voice sounded like music. "Most species smell of panic when threatened. You smell of calculation." "What do you mean?" Yuna asked. "Humans do not run when scared," Zila explained. "Other species run or hide or freeze. Humans think. They plan. They find ways to fight back." Across the cafeteria, Thex and his Vorthak friends were eating bloody chunks of meat. Thex kept glancing over at the human table. His claws scraped against the metal surface as he ate. The sound made other aliens nervous, but Minho just continued eating calmly. "He wants to challenge you," Yuna observed. "Vorthaks are predators. They need to prove they are the strongest." "Let him try," Minho said quietly. The rest of the day passed normally. Minho attended his xenobiology lab, where he studied tissue, samples from different alien species. The lab instructor, a spider-like arachnoid, praised his careful work. Humans, she said, had excellent fine motor control and patience for detailed tasks. In the evening, Minho returned to his small dormitory room. The room was designed for human needs with Earth-normal gravity and atmosphere. It was one of the few places on the station where he felt completely comfortable. As he prepared for sleep, Minho thought about his first few months on the station. The other students feared him because of stories they had heard about humans. They knew humans came from a world full of dangers. They knew humans were persistence hunters who could chase prey for days without stopping. They knew human bodies were incredibly durable compared to most alien species, but they did not understand the most important thing about humans. It was not their physical strength or their dangerous homeworld that made them feared throughout the galaxy. It was their minds. When faced with a threat, most species either fought or ran. Humans did something much more frightening. They adapted. They learned. They found ways to turn their weaknesses into strengths. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. More suspicious looks from alien classmates. More tests of his patience and calm. But Minho was not worried. He was human. His species had survived ice ages and meteor impacts. They had climbed out of caves and reached for the stars. A few frightened aliens were not going to break his spirit. Outside his window, the stars of the Vega system sparkled in the darkness of space. Somewhere among those stars was Earth, his homeworld. The planet that had forged his species in fire and blood and endless struggle. The death world that had created the ultimate survivors. Minho smiled and closed his eyes. Let the aliens whisper their fears. Let them tell their stories about the dangerous humans. Soon enough they would learn that the stories were true, but they would also learn that humans could be the best friends or the worst enemies in the galaxy. The choice was up to them. The next morning brought excitement to the Academy station. News had spread about the human students, and everyone wanted to know more about the Deathworlders. Minho found crowds of aliens following him in the hallways, keeping a safe distance, but watching his every move. In the station's security office, Park Dong-hyuk reviewed the daily reports. He was a military advisor from Earth, sent to watch over the human students. Park was older than Minho, with gray hair and scars from his time in the Earth Defense Force. He understood better than most how other species saw humans. "Sir, there was another incident yesterday," said his partner. "Oh, Taewon." Taewon was a security specialist who helped monitor the station's safety systems. A group of Klaxon students refused to share a laboratory with the human xenobiology students. Park nodded. This was normal. Fear of humans was common throughout the galaxy. Most aliens lived on worlds where the biggest danger was a storm, or maybe a large herbivore. They could not imagine a planet where everything was trying to kill you, all the time. "Any violence?" Park asked. "No, sir. The humans just found another lab. They seem to handle the discrimination well." Park smiled. That was the human way. When faced with obstacles, they found solutions. When others built walls, humans found ways around, over, or through them. It was what made them so successful as a species. Meanwhile, Minho was in his morning xenobiology class. The teacher, Dr. Kixaval, was a Klaxon with 6 arms and compound eyes. She was discussing the different ways species adapted to their environments. The Zephyrians developed filter feeding systems because their world has thick, nutrient-rich atmosphere, Dr. Kixval explained. Her multiple arms moved as she spoke, drawing diagrams in the air with light pens. The verdants became photosynthetic to absorb energy from their bright twin suns. A student raised a claw. It was one of the Vorthax from Professor Veltar's class. What about humans? How did they adapt to their world? Dr. Kixval's compound eyes focused on Minho. Human adaptation wasn't unique. Instead of changing their bodies dramatically, they developed advanced brains and social cooperation. They learned to make tools and work together to overcome any threat. But their world is so dangerous, another student said. This one was ethereal like Zila. How did they survive? Minho spoke up. We learned to be more dangerous than anything else on our planet. The classroom went quiet. Several students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Can you explain that? Dr. Kixval asked. Minho thought for a moment. My grandfather told me stories about camping in the Australian outback when he was young. The desert there can kill you in 100 different ways. Venomous snakes and spiders, heat that cooks your brain, cold that freezes your blood. Animals, with teeth and claws that can tear you apart. The alien students listened with growing alarm, but humans learned to live there anyway, Minho continued. We learned which plants were safe to eat and which ones would kill us. We learned to track animals by their footprints and follow them for days. We learned to make fire and tools and shelters. We became the thing that other animals feared. A Zephyrian student made a squeaking sound of distress. Your entire species evolved to be predators? Not just predators, Minho said calmly. Persistence predators. We do not give up. Ever. After class, news of Minho's explanation spread throughout the station. Aliens gathered in small groups, whispering about the human, who talked about hunting and survival like it was normal. Some species found it fascinating. Others found it terrifying. Li Jiwan, another human student, found Minho in the library that afternoon. Jiwan was the daughter of a human diplomat and had been on the station for 2 years. She understood alien cultures better than most humans. You are making them nervous, Jiwan said as she sat down across from Minho. The station administrators are getting complaints. I only answered a question honestly, Minho replied. I know, but maybe you could be less intense about it. Before Minho could respond, the station's emergency alarm began blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the library. A recorded voice announced, Emergency drill in progress. All students report to designated safe areas immediately. Minho watched as panic spread through the library. Alien students scrambled for the exits, pushing and shoving in their fear. Many were crying or making distress calls in their native languages. The drill was supposed to test their response to a hull breach and toxic gas leak. But Minho did not panic. He stood up calmly and began helping organize the evacuation. When he saw a small verdant student trapped under a fallen shelf, he lifted the heavy metal beam easily. His human muscles, evolved for endurance and strength, made the task simple. Stay calm, Minho told a group of frightened Zephyrian students. Follow the exit signs. Help others if they need it. The toxic gas simulation began. Green smoke filled the corridors. Most alien species began gasping and choking immediately. They needed breathing masks to survive. But Minho kept working, his human lungs processing the thin, contaminated air, without difficulty. In the security office, Park Dong-hyuk watched the drill through the station's cameras. He saw Minho moving through the simulated disaster zone, helping other students reach safety. While aliens panicked and fled, the human moved with purpose and control. Impressive, said Commander Nix, the station's defense coordinator. Nix had 4 arms and gray skin marked with battle scars. Your species handles crisis situations well. We have had a lot of practice, Park replied. The drill ended 30 minutes later. When the all-clear signal sounded, Minho was found in the main evacuation area, sitting calmly with a group of rescued students. He was not even breathing hard. Word of Minho's performance during the drill spread quickly. Aliens who had never spoken to him before began approaching with questions. They wanted to know how humans could function in conditions that would kill. most species. But not everyone was impressed. Thex, the large Vorthak, watched from across the cafeteria as other students gathered around Minho. Thex's yellow eyes burned with jealousy and anger. On his homeworld, Vorthaks were the apex predators. They were the ones others feared. The humans' calm competence challenged everything Thex believed about the natural order. That evening, Zila found Yuna in the common area outside the human dormitories. "I sense danger," Zila said, her misty form flickering with worry. "Someone on this station means harm to the humans." "Who?" Yuna asked. "I cannot tell exactly. The emotions are hidden, buried deep, but there is anger, and hunger, and something else. Something that enjoys causing pain." Zila's empathic abilities were strong but not precise. She could feel emotions from across the station, but she could not always identify their source. "Should we tell Park Dong-hyuk?" Yuna asked. "Perhaps, but be careful. Whoever it is, they are watching, waiting, and they see the humans as a threat that must be removed." As the station settled into its night cycle, most students returned to their dormitories. But in the shadows of the maintenance levels, something moved. Something that did not belong on an academy station. Something that had been planning and waiting for the right moment to strike. The humans had made themselves known. They had shown their capabilities in their calm strength. But they had also made themselves targets. And now something was coming for them. Something that saw their reputation not as a reason to respect them, but as a challenge to be met with violence. The peaceful academy station was about to become a hunting ground. And soon, everyone would learn what happened when something tried to hunt the hunters from the death world called Earth. The emergency broadcast came at dawn. Every screen on the station lit up with a red warning symbol. An automated voice spoke in multiple languages, but the message was the same in all of them. Extreme danger. All station personnel, this is a priority alert. Rathgon, escaped prisoner from Titan Penitentiary, is believed to be heading toward your location. This scurried assassin is considered extremely dangerous. Implement maximum security protocols immediately. In the security office, Park Dong-hyuk felt his blood run cold. He knew that name. Everyone in the military knew about Rathgon. The Scarad was one of the galaxy's most feared killers. He had murdered over 100 beings across 12 star systems before being captured 5 years ago. "Sir, we are getting more details from Galactic Command," O Taewon said, reading from his console. "Rathgon broke out of prison 3 days ago. He killed 6 guards during his escape. Intelligence believes he is seeking revenge against the people who captured him." Park cursed in Korean. Commander Nix had been part of the team that hunted down Rathgon 5 years ago. If the Scarad was coming here, it was for her. The Scarad species were nightmare creatures. They evolved on a world where only the most vicious predators survived. They had thick chitinous armor that could stop most weapons. Their claws could cut through metal. They could compress their bodies to fit through spaces that seemed impossible. Worst of all, they were incredibly intelligent. A Scarad assassin was a thinking, planning killer that never gave up on its prey. Throughout the station, fear spread like wildfire. Teachers canceled classes. Students were ordered to remain in their dormitories. Security teams began patrolling the corridors in full battle armor. But in Professor Veltar's advanced physics classroom, a few students had gathered for a special review session before the lockdown took effect. Minho was there along with Yuna and Zila. Several other alien students had also come, hoping to finish their group projects before the crisis ended. "I do not understand why they are so frightened," said one of the Althorian students. Her crystal body was pulsing with nervous energy. Surely the station's security can handle one escaped prisoner. Thex, who had been unusually quiet, looked up from his tablet. "You do not know about the Scarids," he said in his deep voice. "On my homeworld, we tell stories about them. They are the only species that Vorthax truly fear." Professor Veltar tried to calm her students. "The security forces are well trained. We should focus on our studies and let them handle this situation." But Zila was growing more agitated by the minute. Her misty form kept changing colors, cycling through deep purples and reds that meant distress. As an empath, she could feel Emotions from across the station, and what she felt now terrified her. "He is here," Zila whispered suddenly. "The killer. He is on the station." "That is impossible," Professor Veltar said. "The security scans would have detected any unauthorized boarding." Zila's form began flickering rapidly. "No, no, no. He is here. I can feel him. Cold, hungry, patient. He has been planning this for a long time." Minho looked at his friend with concern. Zila's empathic abilities were never wrong. If she said the assassin was on the station, then he was here. "Where?" Minho asked quietly. "Close," Zila replied, getting closer. "He moves through the walls, through spaces too small for others, but not too small for him." High above them, in the maintenance shafts that ran between the station's levels, something moved in the darkness. Rathgon had been on the station for 6 hours, hidden in spaces where the security scanners could not reach. His species' ability to compress their bone structure allowed him to travel through ventilation systems and service tunnels. The scaried assassin was 8 feet tall when fully extended, but he could squeeze his body down to fit through openings, barely 2 feet wide. His chitinous exoskeleton was dark green, almost black, making him nearly invisible in the shadows. Multiple eyes allowed him to see in complete darkness. His claws were sharper than surgical instruments. Rathgon had studied the station's layout for months while planning his escape. He knew exactly where to find Commander Nix, but first he wanted to send a message. He would kill some innocent students to draw her out, make her feel responsible for their deaths. Then, when she came to stop him, he would have his revenge. The classroom below him was perfect. A dozen young aliens, all helpless and afraid. Their terror would call Commander Nix like a siren song. In the classroom, Minho noticed the change first. The air circulation system had gone quiet. The gentle hum of the ventilation fans had stopped. In the sudden silence, he could hear something else. A soft scraping sound from above. "Everyone be quiet," Minho said in a low voice. The alien students looked at him in confusion, but something in his tone made them obey. The room fell silent except for Professor Veltar's crystal body, chiming softly with nervous energy. Minho's enhanced human hearing picked up more sounds from above. Movement, deliberate and careful. Something large was crawling through the maintenance shafts directly over their classroom. "Zila," he whispered. "Is he above us?" The ethereal's form flickered between red and black. "Yes, directly above. He is choosing, deciding how to kill us all." Some of the alien students began to panic. They had heard the whispered conversation and understood the danger, but their fear paralyzed them. The plant-like Verdans rooted themselves to the floor in terror. The Althorians' crystal bodies began cracking from stress. Even Thex, the proud Vorthak predator, crouched low behind his desk. Only the humans remained calm. Minho looked at Yuna and saw the same controlled alertness in her eyes that he felt in himself. They were both thinking, planning, preparing. It was what humans did when faced with mortal danger. "Get everyone to the far side of the room," Minho whispered to Yuna. "Away from the main door." "What are you going to do?" She whispered back. "Whatever I have to." Above them, Rathgon had finished his preparations. He positioned himself over the classroom's main entrance, where he could drop down and block the only exit. His claws extended to their full length. His multiple eyes focused on the heat signatures below. Soon, the killing would begin. The ceiling panel directly above the door began to buckle under the assassin's weight. Small pieces of metal rained down onto the classroom floor. Professor Veltar looked up and saw the panel beginning to give way. "Students, move to the emergency exit immediately," she commanded. But it was too late. The ceiling panel exploded downward as Rathgon dropped into the room like a nightmare made real. His chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the classroom lights. His claws scraped against the metal floor. Multiple eyes swept the room, cataloging victims. Most of the students screamed. Some fainted. Others tried to run but found their legs would not obey them. The presence of a true apex predator triggered every prey instinct they possessed. But Minho did not scream. He did not run. Instead, he stepped forward, placing himself between the Scarid and the other students. His human eyes met the alien killer's gaze without fear. Rathgon tilted his head, studying this strange behavior. In all his years of killing, he had never seen prey act this way. The human should be running or cowering. Instead, he stood calmly, in the center of the room, watching the assassin with steady, unafraid eyes. Interesting, Rathgon hissed, his voice like grinding metal. The Deathworlder does not fear death. Fear is just information, Minho replied quietly, and right now it is telling me exactly what I need to know about you. The standoff began. Predator faced predator in a contest that would determine whether the Academy Station's reputation for safety would survive the night. And somewhere in the security center, alarms were beginning to sound as sensors detected the breach in Professor Veltar's classroom. The classroom erupted into chaos as Rathgon moved toward the terrified students. His claws scraped against the floor with each step, leaving deep scratches in the metal. Professor Veltar's crystal body shattered from shock, sending rainbow fragments across the room. The sound was like breaking glass mixed with wind chimes. Thex, despite his reputation as a predator, crawled under his desk and whimpered. The proud Vorthak warrior was reduced to a frightened animal in the presence of a true apex killer. The other alien students pressed themselves against the far wall, too scared to even cry for help. But Minho remained in the center of the room. He had not moved from his position between the Scarid and the other students. His breathing was steady. His heart rate was controlled. His human eyes tracked every movement the assassin made. "You should be screaming, soft skin," Rathgon hissed. His multiple eyes focused on the human who dared to stand against him. "You should be begging for mercy like the others." "My species doesn't beg," Minho replied calmly. "And we don't give up." Rathgon laughed, a sound like metal grinding against stone. "Your species? You mean the Deathworlders? I have heard the stories. Primitive apes from a savage planet. You think your reputation scares me?" Minho began walking slowly toward the Scarid, not running away but moving closer. His steps were measured and deliberate. His eyes never left Rathgon's face. "Let me tell you about my world," Minho said in a conversational tone. "Earth has creatures that make you look like a pet. We have sharks that can smell a single drop of blood in the water from miles away. We have bears that weigh 800 pounds and can run 30 miles per hour. We have snakes whose venom can kill an elephant." Rathgon's confidence wavered slightly. Something was wrong here. Prey did not walk toward predators. Prey did not speak calmly about other predators. What was this human doing? And yet, Minho continued, still walking closer, humans hunted all of them. We tracked mammoths across frozen wasteland. We followed lions into their own territory. We dove into the ocean to hunt whales with nothing but spears and ropes. The alien students watched in amazement and horror as Minho kept advancing. Yuna wanted to call out to her friend, to tell him to run, but something in his voice stopped her. This was not panic or madness. This was something else entirely. "You know what makes humans different from other prey species?" Minho asked. He was now only 10 feet from Rathgon, close enough to see the confusion in the assassin's multiple eyes. "We don't just fight when cornered. We hunt back." Rathgon struck without warning. His claws lashed out in a deadly arc that would have disemboweled any other species, but Minho was already moving. His human reflexes, honed by millions of years of avoiding predators, carried him just out of reach. The claws caught his shoulder, tearing through fabric and skin. Alien neurotoxins from the Scarid's claws entered his bloodstream. Any other species would have collapsed immediately, paralyzed by the venom, but human immune systems were designed to handle everything from cobra venom to bacterial infections. Minho's body began neutralizing the toxins even as they spread. More disturbing to Rathgon was that the human barely seemed to notice the wound. Blood ran down Minho's arm, but he did not cry out. He did not stumble. He just kept moving, kept talking, kept advancing. On Earth, we call it persistence hunting, Minho said. His voice remained steady despite the pain. We would find an animal, much stronger and faster than us. Then we would follow it, not trying to catch it right away, just following, always following. Rathgon struck again, this time with both claws. But Minho was ready. He rolled aside, came up behind a desk, and kept talking. The animal would run. We would follow. It would hide. We would find it. It would fight. We would wait until it was tired, then follow some more. Do you know what happened to those animals, Rathgon? The Scarid's breathing was becoming rapid. This was not how hunting was supposed to work. He was the predator. He was supposed to inspire terror and helplessness. But this human was making him feel like he was being hunted. They died. Minho answered his own question. Not from our strength, or our claws, or our venom. They died from exhaustion. They died because they could not escape something that would never ever stop following them. Rathgon roared in frustration and leaped over the desk, all 8 feet of chitinous death aimed at the human. But Minho was not there anymore. He had moved again, circling like a predator himself. That's what we are, Minho said from his new position. We are the thing that follows you in the dark, the thing that tracks you across continents, the thing that never gets tired, never gives up, and never stops coming. The psychological warfare was working. Rathgon could feel something he had never experienced before. Genuine fear. Not fear of pain or death, but fear of being hunted by something that could not be intimidated or discouraged. You want to know why other species call us Deathworlders? Minho asked. He was bleeding from 3 different wounds now, but he kept moving, kept talking. It's not because we can't die. It's because we do what needs to be done regardless of the cost. We walk into the dark because someone has to. We face the monsters because that's what humans do. Rathgon backed toward the door. For the first time in his life, he wanted to retreat. This was wrong. This human was supposed to be easy prey. Instead, he felt like he was trapped in a cage with something far more dangerous than himself. Run, Minho said softly. Run, and see how long it takes me to find you. Run and learn what it feels like to be hunted by something that evolved to be the ultimate persistence predator. Run and discover why every species in the galaxy has nightmares about humans. The Scarid assassin, the thing that had murdered over 100 beings, broke. His nerves shattered like Professor Veltar's crystal body. He turned and fled through the classroom door, his claws scraping against the walls as he ran. Minho did not pursue immediately. Instead, he walked calmly to where Professor Veltar's fragments lay scattered on the floor. The Althorian was still, conscious, her crystal consciousness flickering weakly. Are you injured? He asked the broken professor. I will survive, she chimed softly. The others? Minho looked around the classroom. The alien students were slowly emerging from their hiding places, staring at him with a mixture of awe and terror. Yuna rushed to his side to examine his wounds. Zila floated nearby, her empathic abilities overwhelmed by the conflicting emotions in the room. Everyone is safe, Minho reported. From the corridors outside came the sound of security teams running toward their location. Park Dong-hyuk's voice could be heard shouting orders in Korean and Galactic Standard. Help was finally arriving, but the most important part of the confrontation was over. The killer had run. The human had stood his ground. And everyone in that classroom had learned something about the species from the death world called Earth. They were not just survivors. They were the thing that other predators ran from in the night. The security team burst through the classroom door 3 minutes after Rathgon fled. Park Dong-hyuk led the way, his weapon drawn and ready. Behind him came Oh Tae-won and 6 other security officers from different species. They expected to find a massacre. Instead, they found Minho calmly bandaging his wounds while alien students huddled in the corner. Where is he? Park demanded in Korean. Gone, Minho replied in the same language. He ran toward the maintenance levels. Park studied his young countryman with amazement. Minho's shirt was torn and bloody, but he was still on his feet. Still, thinking clearly, still in control. You fought a Scarid assassin and lived? Oh Tae-won asked in disbelief. I didn't fight him, Minho corrected. I made him understand what he was really facing. Captain Rex arrived with the second wave of security. Personnel, the grizzled veteran of the Scarred Wars, took one look at the scene and knew immediately what had happened. He had seen it before, during the frontier conflicts. Psychological warfare, Captain Rex said with grudging respect. You made him afraid. Fear is just information, Minho repeated his earlier words. I gave him new information about what humans really are. The search for Rathgon continued for 2 hours. They found him 3 levels down in a storage bay, pressed into a corner like a trapped animal. The mighty assassin who had terrorized the galaxy was muttering to himself about the human that doesn't stop and the thing that follows in the dark. When the security team tried to approach, Rathgon screamed and tried to make himself smaller. The feared killer had been broken by a 19-year-old human who never even threw a punch. Dr. Song Hana arrived on the next transport ship. She was a xenopsychologist from Earth, an expert in how different species thought and felt. Her job was to understand what had happened in that classroom and why it had been so effective. Tell me exactly what you did, Dr. Song asked Minho as she examined his wounds in the medical bay. I reminded him that humans are persistence predators, Minho explained. His species evolved to kill with shock and overwhelming force. But our species evolved to never give up. Ever. We kept following our prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Dr. Song nodded as she cleaned the claw marks on his shoulder. The neurotoxins had been completely neutralized by his immune system. Most aliens would have died from those scratches. And the psychological aspect? I made him understand that he wasn't hunting prey anymore. He was being hunted by something that had evolved specifically to be unkillable. Not because we can't die, but because we refuse to stop even when we're dying. Word of the confrontation spread throughout the station within hours. The alien students who had witnessed it told their friends. Their friends told others. Soon everyone knew about the human who had faced down the galaxy's most feared assassin, without weapons, without armor, and without fear. Yuna found Minho in the common area that evening. He was reading a textbook as if nothing had happened. His bandaged shoulder was the only sign of the day's violence. How did you know it would work, she asked. I didn't, Minho admitted, but I knew that running would definitely not work. Scarids are faster than humans. Stronger, too. The only advantage we had was up here. He tapped his temple with one finger. And now everyone knows what Deathworlder really means. She was right. The atmosphere on the station had changed. Completely. Alien students no longer whispered fearfully when humans passed by. Instead, they looked at them with a mixture of respect and awe. Some even approached to ask questions about Earth and human culture. Thex was among them. The proud Vorthak warrior approached Minho's table in the cafeteria the next day, his head lowered in submission. May I sit with you? Thex asked quietly. Of course, Minho replied. As they ate, Thex spoke in his rumbling voice. On my world, we respect strength above all things. I thought humans were weak because you do not look like warriors. I was wrong. We are warriors, Minho said. We just fight differently than most species. Yes, you fight with your minds, and your minds are terrifying. Professor Veltar, her crystal body carefully repaired, held a special class the following week. She wanted to discuss what had happened and what it meant for interspecies relations. The confrontation between student Minho and the assassin Rathgon demonstrates something important about human psychology, she explained to her class. Her voice chimed with academic interest. Humans do not experience fear the same way other species do. Zila, the ethereal empath, raised a glowing tendril. But I could sense his fear during the fight. He was terrified. Exactly, Professor Veltar said. But human fear does not cause paralysis or panic. Instead, it causes increased focus and determination. They become more dangerous when afraid, not less. The lesson was not lost on the alien students. They began to understand why humans had been so successful since joining the galactic community. It was not their technology or their numbers. It was their psychology. They were a species that refused to accept defeat under any circumstances. Commander, Nix held a meeting with all department heads to discuss new security protocols. We need to revise our emergency procedures, she announced. In case of hostile boarding, all human personnel are now authorized to take command of evacuation efforts. Other species should follow their instructions without question. It was an unprecedented decision. Never before had one species been given such authority over others in crisis situations. But the evidence was clear. Humans remained calm and effective when everyone else panicked. Park Dong-hyuk submitted his report to Earth Command that night. In it, he wrote, "The reputation of humans as Deathworlders is now firmly established throughout this sector. What happened here will be discussed in xenopsychology classes for decades. One unarmed human student defeated the galaxy's most feared assassin using nothing but psychological warfare and species-typical behavior. Recommend expanding human exchange programs to other academy stations." Minho continued his studies as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. When he walked the corridors now, other students stepped aside not from fear, but from respect. They understood that they were sharing their space with representatives of the galaxy's apex predator species. The final confirmation came when Rathgon was interviewed by galactic investigators. The broken assassin could only repeat the same phrases over and over. The human doesn't stop. It follows you forever. It gets inside your head and makes you afraid of shadows. It turns you into prey. The investigators asked what exactly Minho had done to break him. "He made me understand," Rathgon whispered. "He made me understand that I was never the predator. I was always the prey. Humans are what we run from in our nightmares. They are the dark thing that follows us until we can't run anymore." 3. Months later, Minho graduated from the Academy Exchange Program with full honors. His xenobiology research was praised by instructors from 12 different species. But more importantly, he had changed how the galaxy saw humanity. As he prepared to return to Earth, Zila approached him one final time. "Your emotional signature is still unique," she told him. "But now I understand what I was sensing. It was not the absence of fear. It was the presence of something stronger than fear." "What?" Minho asked. "Purpose. Determination. The absolute certainty that you will do what needs to be done, no matter what stands in your way. It is the most terrifying and most beautiful thing I have ever felt." Minho smiled and touched his friend's glowing form gently. "That's what makes us human." The Academy Station's new motto, inscribed in multiple languages on the main concourse, read, "In crisis, follow the Deathworlders. They will show you the way home." And throughout the galaxy, other species told their children new stories, stories about the humans from Earth. The species that walked into danger because someone had to. The people who faced monsters so others wouldn't have to. The Deathworlders who were more afraid of failing their friends than they were of dying themselves. It was the truth about humanity that Minho had revealed in that classroom. They were not fearless. They were something much more dangerous than that. They were a species that did what needed to be done despite their fears, not because of the absence of them. The killer had walked into that class expecting to find easy victims. Instead, he found something that had evolved specifically to be harder to kill than anything else in the universe. He found a human. And humans, as the galaxy was learning, were the thing that nightmares had nightmares about.